Hi, everyone. Thank you. And it's great to be here representing H2O.ai Health at HIMSS 21. We are thankful for your participation and your attendance and appreciate the fact that you took time off from your schedules to attend this presentation. We are going to be talking about a topic that's on top of everybody's minds, not just technologists and business leaders, but also clinicians and patients and other individuals, which is how do we achieve success with AI and digital transformation for healthcare organizations. As a part of this, we'll be touching upon validated best practices and strategies which have worked for others who have been this path and have hit a level of maturity in terms of being able to measure and communicate that success across multiple fronts. My name is Prashant Natarajan, and I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Products at H2O AI Health. And I'm also the author of the HIMSS bestseller, Demystifying Big Data and Machine Learning for Healthcare, which I co-wrote with Dr. John Frenzel and Herb Smalls, and also have an upcoming book, Demystifying AI for the Enterprise, a playbook for business value and digital transformation, with a few other co-authors in the space. Again, topics that are particularly relevant to today's presentation. Here is my conflict of interest statement for those who would like to take a look at it offline. And I would like to spend a few seconds over here talking about H2O.ai and who we are. Our mission at H2O.ai is to democratize AI for healthcare organizations. We are an open source software company that has played a huge role in inventing and reimagining what is possible with machine learning and AI, both platforms and applications. Our vision is to be known as the AI organization that made a difference in the world of health. Wellness and healthcare AI are fundamental to our DNA. And we work with the leading healthcare organizations, whether they are providers, pharma and life sciences organizations, or health insurers, to democratize AI for their patients, clinicians, operational users, and business stakeholders. At H2O AI Health, we are obsessed with our customers' success in creating business value, and most importantly, leveraging AI for successful human outcomes. We bring deep healthcare knowledge, domain expertise, best-in-class AI products and solutions to our collaboration with our customers and our partners. And that has also reflected by objective third-party ratings of what H2O does. We have been recognized as a visionary company in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Cloud AI Developer Services and in the data science and machine learning platforms, as you can see over here. Our strengths are the homogeneity of our platform, the unified app store that we have pioneered, our thought leadership and invention in the space of automated machine learning or AutoML, value creation, which is again a lot of what today's presentation is about, the ability to augment, and very importantly in healthcare, rich explainable AI. From an agenda perspective, we are going to be touching upon the current state, the imperatives for change, the ensuring the creation of outcomes and value, and finally, what it'll take us to get to success. Here are the learning objectives that we hope you will get out of today's presentation. So what is the current state? Where are we today? As you can see, these are some of the headlines and quotes from what is going on. When it comes to government organizations, whether it's the US government or the European Union or China or other countries around the world, especially in the during and post-pandemic, there is a determined effort and a recognition that AI is going to make things better for the various humans of healthcare. The governments are actually putting their money where their mouth is. And the US government, for example, is going to be paying doctors to use AI algorithms in diabetes and stroke. The other thing that is very important in healthcare is looking at responsible AI. How do we leverage data and technology to counteract bias? As we have seen in HIMSS 21 so far, the conversations around social determinants of health and health equity and also bias is something that has been absolutely bubbling up to the top. And this is where we think it's very important that in addition to accuracy and explainability, responsibility also becomes a part of the conversation in terms of implementing AI in healthcare. And we will touch upon some examples of where this is happening across board. So what is going on? Why the need to change right now? So one simple answer is, well, COVID has changed everything. But in many ways, it has done that in a positive way for healthcare organizations. In general, the trend of patient at the center and growing consumerism, which was anyway happening, has been accelerated tremendously in the last 2 years. There is also an increasing recognition and a need for collaboration across the healthcare ecosystem, as we are seeing from what is happening in the market. So it is not just organizations and the people within those organizations within the four walls who are involved in trying to use AI to improve the experience for patients and caregivers and clinicians, and also administrative staff and leaders. It is also these subverticals, so to speak, coming together. And we see that in increasing amount of collaboration that's happening between providers and payers, providers and pharma, pharma and payers, and of course, most recently, as is evident to all of us, with public health as well. There is also a transition as a part of value-based care and accountable care to go from health care to wellness and holistic care. The reality is that in addition to all of these, there are severe financial headwinds that healthcare organizations face, both in the short term and the long term. And one of the prominent examples that faces healthcare providers, for example, is the one where elective procedures have dropped and patients, for example, diabetics and even cancer patients are not coming in because of the fears that have been caused by COVID. Finally, accelerated digitalization, automation, and augmentation, and the increasing availability of both structured and unstructured data for machine learning is something that has expanded and accelerated rapidly to make AI real in the healthcare setting. So how can we generate value if you're a healthcare organization? I'm going to take an example of a healthcare provider organization over here. And as you can see here, there are multiple opportunities for how we can generate value with AI. Supply chain management is one of the hot areas that we are seeing across board, both with our customers and also with our partners, and also with what we are doing. Hospital and clinical operations, obviously, huge need over there. And as we touched upon previously, as a result of patient-centered care, an increasing focus on patient 360 and engagement. Without going through every one of these things over here, it is safe to assume that whether it is HR and talent, corporate finance and revenue cycle management, care provider, care manager experience, or multi-omics, real world evidence, and population and public health, there are multiple efforts that are currently ongoing across the healthcare landscape for organizations to take advantage of AI. And many of them are having success stories, as we see among our own clients. So where can we put AI to work in healthcare organization? Here are some examples. Classification in order to determine normal versus abnormal findings, or population risk stratification, document classification, disease and tumor classification, for example, is a particular sample indicative of a tumor or not, are things where classification can be put to work. Healthcare by its very nature is episodic. And as a result, time series forecasting, whether it is along the dimensions of demand, growth, or capacity forecasting, becomes very important. So does forecasting what happens with disease and disease progression and chronic disease management. Recommender systems are increasingly becoming very popular to recommend next best actions for clinicians, patients, and administrative professionals, but also more importantly, to match patients with appropriate resources, whether those are educational resources or other types of resources, and then also cohort comparison. Probability estimation is very relevant in terms of use cases such as claims approval and denial, what are likely outcomes, what are readmission predictions, etc. Memory-based learning to determine patients like mine, cost and quality, and readmission risk also have a huge value, as to unsupervised machine learning methods such as clustering, which have multiple use cases over here. One of the big things that we at H2O AI Health are seeing is an increasing focus on the use of computer vision and natural language processing, whether it is looking at document summaries, medical coding, clinical complexity, referrals, contract management, surveys, etc. We are seeing a lot of our clients work with us in order to use and leverage NLP, both with supervised, semi-supervised, and unsupervised methods to bring value out of what is widely estimated to be 80% of healthcare data, which is unstructured data. As we have also seen from our chest abnormality predictor and diabetic retinopathy predictor, X-ray catheter placement applications, we are seeing a significant openness and excitement around medical image processing in terms of the rich amount of data that sits there, both as medical images and DICOM metadata. Moving on, what are some of the key considerations for healthcare? We're going to spend some time over here. The first consideration is selecting the right use case. The use case that we select has to provide value, and that value would be quantitative value and also qualitative value. It would cover dimensions such as return on investment, also the amount of change that is happening, but also very importantly, what is the qualitative value it provides to the humans of healthcare, patients, caregivers, physicians, nurses, care managers, and others. And that has to be the North Star of what we do. As we saw in the previous slides, there are multiple areas where we can put healthcare AI to work. So it becomes very important to prioritize the use cases that we have in front of us in favor of ones that create value versus ones that would create less value or would be primarily experimental. Experimentation in data science and AI/ML is important, but that is not the end. It's merely a means to the end. Operationalizing these experiments, making them scalable, making them repeatable, and creating that value becomes even more important than doing experiments. So every experiment should lead to an endpoint. Doesn't always happen, but that's why prioritization and the determination of value upfront, even if it is predictive value, becomes very important. As we have seen from several news stories recently, accuracy is extremely important in healthcare. None of us wants to be in a position where a low accuracy model determines whether we or a loved one of ours gets care or not. There is a severe impact, especially in clinical AI and also care management, for example, in having high accuracy models. And the costs of low accuracy models have a severe and validated impact on trust, on how humans interact with those systems and applications, on ROI, and also collaboration. Low accuracy models create a lot of challenge, and which is why we focus a lot on making sure that the highest accuracy models are created. Now, if we are trying to create the highest accuracy model by manual feature engineering and creating things from scratch, that is, of course, going to be more time consuming and it's going to create challenges. So my recommendation is that you leverage automated machine learning or auto ML. For example, H2O AI's driverless AI or the auto ML engine we have in the H2O AI hybrid cloud, which features automated feature engineering, the automated creation of models and ensembles and scoring pipelines, and also one-touch deployment. Using such tools not only generates high accuracy models, it gives you options to decide what you want to use. So you still have human in the loop and human determination of where this works. But more importantly, it allows you to do things in minutes, days, minutes, hours, and days, rather than weeks and months as used to happen previously. Now, in the healthcare context, interpretability and explainability are particularly important. And I define interpretability, often these terms are interchanged and people tend to use them interchangeably. I don't think that is necessarily um, appropriate or reflective of what happens. Interpretability is really a data scientist or a machine learning engineer or somebody who has a technical background, understanding how a model went about creating a prediction and understanding the technicalities, for example, or the layers in a model that created it. Now, explainability, on the other hand, is taking the results of interpretability and being able to explain that to a clinician or a patient or an administrative operations user in plain English in a way that they can understand. So interpretability and explainability are extremely important in the healthcare context because it goes back to our conversation earlier on trust. People trust what they understand. At the same time, responsible and fair AI require the ability to retrain models quickly, to be able to monitor models, and also to proactively minimize the bias. Now, creating models and scoring pipelines is only one part of the equation. Great models and scoring pipelines are the start, not the finish. Know thy audience. Artificial intelligence AI apps are becoming more important as a driver of usage and adoption, because what we are finding is that when you create an app, in addition to other integration points and models, it's more likely that business and operational users are going to be able to use it rather than try and understand how a model works and what to do with the model. And we see this happening much more so now since machine learning has become mainstream in healthcare. Also focus on leveraging data in all its forms. AI must use integrated data. It's not enough just to use structured data or unstructured data, but really being able to combine those when needed in order to create better results and better outcomes for the people who are using these AI apps and models. Data fidelity, which is defined as the quality of the data in the context of its use and in the context of its user, is more useful than one size fits all data quality. As those of us who have been in healthcare for a long time have realized, it is not possible to come up with a single definition of data quality across all healthcare use cases. And as a result, understanding that the quality of the data is extremely dependent on the source of the data, the context of its usage, and the person or people using it, being able to understand and tailor that becomes more important. And there is a lot of description of data fidelity in the book that I mentioned earlier, Demystifying Big Data and Machine Learning for Healthcare. What we are also seeing now is, thanks to the technologies available, an increasing focus on unstructured data, images, texts, and PDFs across the gamut and examples we touched upon previously. Finally, embedding predictions and insights into workflows is very important, and also understanding how to connect feature importance coming out of feature engineering to contextual impact. And also the key thing is be open to reimagining workflows, because the insights and the results you're going to get out of AI will sometimes force you to look at new ways of doing things than the ways of before. In summary, how do we get there? The key thing is value, making a tangible business case and connecting the efforts to value. There's also the important need for leaders who need to believe in not just the products and the solutions, but also people and outcomes, and anchoring from the top becomes extremely important. In healthcare, compared to other industries, healthcare organizations must focus on capability development, which spans across the 3 Ts: talent, technology, and the needs of transformation. Keep the end in mind, as Stephen Covey says. Avoid pilots and garage analytics, because again, going back to our comment about experimentation and pilots, that doesn't really move the needle in terms of the success that we want to see. Change is very important in terms of both being able to address how things might change, working with others on a cross-functional basis to bring about change management, and also importantly, last mile adoption, which, like any last mile effort, tends to often be the most difficult. So focus on the change that needs to happen, and at least think about it, even as you discover results in terms of going about it. Finally, your focus should be on repeatability. How do you make this AI application, all these models, stick? What are you doing in terms of MLOps and other ways to adapt? How are you adapting to new regulations, new business processes, or new market conditions, for example, as we saw with COVID-19? And the key thing for success is the ability to repeat it again and again, because success breeds success. On that note, thank you very much. And here is some contact information, my email ID if you'd like to contact me, or my LinkedIn profile. But you can also follow H2O AI on Twitter at H2O AI. And also please feel free to visit our website at h2o.ai/health. And we have a free trial where you can actually try out all of the things we talked about previously over here, from soup to nuts, from automated feature engineering to AI apps, on the free trial version of the H2O AI hybrid cloud. Thank you again for your time, and we'll take a few questions in the time that's left.